Hey there! In my last video I went over the basic rules of the game. At this point you've learnt enough to technically play the game, and I hope you've played a few practice games since, but you're still roughly 2 videos away from being able to play a solid game that makes any sense, because there are some extensions of the rules that are crucial to the game that I haven't really gone over yet. In this video I'll be going over just one of them, the concept of life and death. Life and death is an integral part of the game. It can be scary or exhilarating depending on what side of the battle you're on. Let's have a look at a position I've prepared on a 13 by 13 that can highlight the concepts of life and death. The basics of life and death is that, as you would expect, groups that are surrounded generally get killed. But when you think about it, by the end of the game, everything is really surrounded by everything. So how do we decide what groups of stones are fine and what aren't? And does it really matter? Alright, well, let's assume that this is a beginner game and they've both passed and this is the final result and they both think, everything's alive and well. We'll do a quick counting exercise. Let's count white first. So according to the rules, this would be all of white's points. We have 3, 7, 11, 13, 14, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 25, 28, 29, 35.5 after commie. So white is 35.5. And now let's count black. I won't do the circles this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across. There's going to be 6, 12, 18, 24, 25, 26, 27, 30, 32, 34, 36. It's going to be 36 for black, assuming no prisoners were taken during this game. And that means black wins by half a point. However, there are a lot of groups here that are actually dead. After you account for those, black is actually winning by roughly 100 points. We'll get back to this position and figure out what's alive and dead later, but for now I'll explain the concept. By now you should be familiar with the fact that this black group's going to be easily captured, only has 2 liberties left, and it doesn't really matter what black does. It's done. It's captured. But what about this group? In this group, black has an eye in the middle. You might think, oh, well then that's just alive. Because if you remember the suicide rule, if white tries to play in there, white's stone would be immediately captured. I'll just put a stone in there to illustrate again. If white tries to put it in here, white has 0 liberties, immediately captured, doesn't work. So you'd think it's just alive, can't be captured. But that's not quite true. There's a small caveat I didn't mention about the suicide rule, and that's what's known as capture first, count second. This means that to determine if it's a suicide rule, we first see if the stone captures anything. By that I mean if I place a stone in here, before looking at our own liberties, does this capture anything? Well, yes it does. It captures the black group. This black group now has 0 liberties. After it's captured, we count our own liberties. If we're left with more than 1 liberty, then it's not a suicide move. So what about in this position? The only difference here is that black has 1 more liberty. Of course, now, if white were to try and play inside here, we use the capture first, count second rule. Does this capture anything? No, because black is still left with a liberty. And then because white doesn't have any liberties, it's an illegal move. If white wanted to capture this group, white would have to first go here, and can then play inside. Now I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent and explain something slightly related, but it's mostly unrelated, but I wanted to get it in now. Like, I just demonstrated how to capture this group, if you had to. But in this game, as the game would play out, you don't really need to capture it at all, so long as White's group is fine. The reason for that is that any stones or groups that are unconditionally dead, at the end of the game they just get removed and added to your prisons, as if they were taken. So if White doesn't need to capture this at any moment, eventually when the game ends they're just going to be taken away. As long as White can like prove that it can be captured, and it can easily be proven with 2 moves. Black can't prevent that. But anyways, back to life and death. So what about this group? Black's group is completely surrounded here. Can it be killed as well? Well, the answer to that is that it actually depends on who goes first. If Black has the first move, they actually have a way of preventing this from being captured. So how does Black prevent a completely surrounded group from being captured? Well, there's a concept we have in Go called 2 eyes. That is to say, 2 separate areas. Any group that can make a shape with 2 eyes makes an indestructible shape that can't ever be captured. Now, keeping in mind the rule about suicide, let's have a look at this. If White wants to capture this group, they have to take away both of these liberties. As you can see, Black only has 2 liberties. If White were to try and play in here, we have to remember, does this capture anything? Actually it doesn't, because Black still has 1 liberty. And now White is left with 0 liberties. That means it's a suicide move. You can't play this. So basically, because White can't play 2 moves in a row, the group's basically alive. It can't ever be taken. So if this is the move that allows Black to live, then generally speaking that is the move that also allows White to kill. If White can prevent Black from making 2 eyes, White's going to kill the group. If Black tanukis, tanuki means to play away, White can play right here. This prevents Black from ever making 2 eyes. If Black ignores it, thinking they're fine, notice that the next move actually puts Black in Atari. Black only has 1 liberty. Now, White also has 1 liberty, so Black can take, but it's still dead, still just 1 eye. When White throws in, Black is in Atari, so Black has to respond. White is also an Atari, so Black's going to take White. And now, we're back to that other position. I'll just bring it up. We're basically back to this. Just slightly different. And White can drop a stone in there. So that means that from here, it's just dead. Once this happens, you don't really need to go on and capture it. You can sort of just like take it off at the end of the game. Also, when this happens to Black, Black should just ignore it, right? It's already dead. There's nothing you can do. Whoops-a-daisy. You just move on. Black shouldn't keep placing a stone here, because White can just play away from there as well. Black shouldn't keep playing in here, and White shouldn't really either. It's just dead. There's nothing that's going to change it. The status of this shape isn't really changed by the fact that it's in a corner instead of the center. White still needs this to live. Same thing, you know, you got the 2 eyes. Can't play 2 moves at once. and black needs that move to kill. Becomes the exact same thing. Sorry about the board being off a little bit, but anyways, let's have a look at this group. Can this group live? Can it be killed? Is it already alive? Well, it hasn't made two eyes yet. It is this big space here. It's basically one space. It needs to find a way to divide that into two. So white needs to play another move. You might wonder, where can they play? So let's have a look at some moves. If white plays here, it's still two eyes. Sorry, one eye, right? That doesn't help. If white plays here, it's still one eyes. You're not really separating the eyes into two. If white plays here, it's sort of the same thing. So feel free to pause the video now if you like and try and see where the key move is. Alright, so the key move in this shape, the only shape that makes it live, the only move that makes it live, is this one. So here we have two separate spaces. Black can't do anything, it's just unconditionally alive at this point. If black goes here, just who cares, you're already alive. Black goes here. You're an Atari now, so you have to take. But you're still alive, still two eyes. Black goes here, you can ignore it. Again. And black is now at a point where they can't play here, because it's a suicide move. They can't play here, because it's a suicide move. So yeah, as you can see, it's just alive. Now of course, if white were to Tanuki, and black were to go here, it's a different story. White can no longer find a way to separate this into two different eyes. If here, black goes here, this is just dead. It doesn't matter what white does. As an illustration, let's say, to prove that black can capture, let's just go here. So this group is an Atari. White takes. Now at this point, black needs to play again, right? If black plays away thinking, oh good, it's already dead, white's made two eyes. So anyways, black plays here. White can't play anywhere without self-Atarying. Eventually, you'll see a similar variation to before, where it just dies. So yeah, that's the key move. If we look at some other ones, you know, this isn't going to work because two eyes, likewise, two eyes. You've just got to play here. That's basically the gist of life and death. Just make sure you can make two eyes so you can't be captured when surrounded. But sometimes what looks like eyes actually aren't. These deceptive things are called false eyes. You have to be careful to not confuse a real eye for a false eye, as that could end up in your group being unexpectedly killed. Or on the other hand, your skill in identifying false eyes is what could lead to you killing your opponent's groups and netting a fast victory. The basics of a false eye is that if a part of the eye can be Atari'd, then it's not really an eye. So if black goes first here, black's just alive, right? You've got that two-eye thing going on. If white were to go here instead, these three stones, 1, 2, 3, are actually an Atari right now. If black Tanukis, white takes. And now this is just dead, only as one eye. If black connects, black has one eye. So the secret is to not allow your eyes to be an Atari. That is why black played here. Alright, let's have a look at this one. It's basically the same concept. If white goes first, white lives. But if black goes first, this is now unconditionally dead. Because this is put into Atari. Eventually, white obviously can't connect or do anything in the area. Eventually, black can take, and then take the whole group. And that's because, as you can see, this stone puts this in Atari now. Only has one liberty. Here's a shortcut for determining if an eye is false. You don't really have to learn this, but I personally find it helpful. The shortcut is, if an eye has lost at least half of its corners, it's false. So to give an example, here, this eye has 4 corners. If white takes just 2, it's a false eye. Let's say white takes these. See how this is an Atari? I can then take and then take again. Let's say I take the top 2. This is an Atari, same thing. Let's say I go diagonal. This is an Atari, same thing. Let's do this one over here. This one looks a bit weird, but this group is an Atari. It only actually has 1 liberty. So by playing here, I can actually just take the whole thing. Eyes that are located in the corner or on the sides are basically the same, just a little different. You can see this eye actually has 2 liberties. So remember, the rule is if black here can get at least half of them, it's not a real eye. So if black just gets 1, let's do this one. You can see it's a false eye. Black gets the other one. Another 2 false eyes actually. This is an Atari already, and so is this. If this seems overwhelming at the moment, don't worry too much. It won't take long for it to become second nature. Alright, back to this position, and I've fixed up the go board again. Whoops. Using what you just learned, you should be able to work out the status of some of these groups. Feel free to pause for each group and try to figure out its status. Is each group alive, dead, or does it depend on who plays first? Alright then, let's start with the top left. We just saw this shape recently, so as you might have guessed, it depends who plays here first. Tanuki, white. Okay, now for this group on the left, with its square shape, it sort of looks like it can make 2 eyes easily, but unfortunately it's just dead. It doesn't even matter who plays first here. It doesn't even matter that it has more space than this other group. It's just unconditionally dead. Even if white goes first, black can separate this space into 1 eye. So this is just dead. White needs 2 moves in a row to make 2 eyes here, just because the shape is so bulky. Okay, now for the bottom left. Can black prevent white from making 2 eyes here, 2 separate areas? And the answer is no. With something as simple as this, we can already see 2 separate areas. So white's alive. So that means black's only move to try and kill this group is this. And white can just take. Still 2 eyes. There's no way to prevent it. So that's just alive unconditionally, doesn't matter who goes first. Now for the bottom right, we've seen this shape as well. And it depends on who plays first. If black goes here, it only has one eye space. And if white goes there, it is 2. Now on the right side, this is dead. Doesn't matter what happens, because this is a false eye. It's an Atari and can be captured. Top right, probably the easiest one there. It's just dead. Now for the top. I decided to put a hard one in here just for the hell of it. The top middle status actually depends who plays first. If white goes first, white easily makes 2 or 3 eyes immediately. If black goes first, this whole area becomes 1 eye. So from here it gets a bit complicated. If white tries to do anything basic, it's always just 1 eye. White's only chance of surviving here is to attach at the bottom. At first glance, it looks like this succeeds in living. If black goes here, it's 2 eyes for white. And if black goes left, it's 2 eyes as well. But black is this strange tesseragy that can still kill the group. And that's this move. Now at first it looks like white can play on either side to make 2 eyes. But by playing on one side, it actually turns one of these groups into Atari. So black can immediately take. And it's the same for the other side as well. For that reason, after black plays here, this whole group is dead. Now for a bonus problem. Is black alive in the center? The answer is, of course. Black has a ton of ways to make many eyes. If white tries to poke out an eye over here, I mean, it shouldn't be too hard to see that there's like eyes here, here, down here. It's never going to die. It's too strong. Black could just keep tanukiing really, because all black has to do. So let's assume black passes. And white keeps trying to kill this. All black has to do is eventually go here. And now, in some weird way, there is 1 eye and the second eye, which is huge. So it's totally fine. You don't even have to read it out. You now know life and death and have a solid understanding of the game rules. I could end it here, but I'm not going to. There's actually 2 more statuses that a group can have, even though those are kind of rare. As a beginner, it's not very important to learn these right away, but in the interest of putting most life and death concepts in one video, I'm keeping these in here. So don't worry if you don't get it straight away. In fact, you could just ignore the rest of this video and come back to this spot if you stumble upon a weird situation where you can't tell if something is alive or not in one of your games. Anyways, onto the life and death concept known as Seki. Seki means mutual life. It is a kind of status that isn't really alive or dead and doesn't occur very often. Okay, let's try and digest this position. How many groups are there? Well, there's actually 4. So we have this group, that's all 1. This group on the other side. And then these 2 groups in the middle. Because you can see they're all cut off from each other. So, these two outside groups are basically alive. You know, they've got, you know, they're going to make two eyes, it's fine. These inside groups are what we're going to pay attention to. They both have two liberties, here and here, that they share with each other. So it's kind of a capturing race where they're trying to kill each other first. However, they're both paralyzed. They can't move. If black tries to kill white here, black is an Atari now. Before, black had two liberties. They both did. Now, black only has one liberty along with white. They're both in Atari. But it's white's turn. So white captures. Same thing here. Okay, so black can't play anywhere here, but white can't either. Black plays away. White can't play here either. Or here. So both of these groups are sort of trapped in a limbo where they can't really capture each other and are therefore both alive. So you might be wondering, if they're both alive, then what happens to the points in the middle? Well, those are dumb air points. As explained in a previous video, dumb air points are intersections on the board that aren't surrounded by only one color. So for that reason, they're no one's points. They contribute to no one's score. So these, at the end of the game, leave these stones on and don't count these points for anyone. Let's have a look at this group. Is this group alive, dead, or is it Seki? We can easily see that if white plays here, white actually has two eyes and is therefore alive. But if black goes first, it actually changes the result. At this point, the group is actually Seki. Both this group and this group are neither alive or dead. This is because neither group can move. They can do nothing locally. Say white moves first. Well, now white is an Atari. Same for the other side. So white can't move. Can black move? Well, white's in keys. Black goes here. Black's in self-Atari. And now, 4 in a row. 4 in a row is a common shape that is always alive due to mi. Black takes one, you take the other. So if white goes first in this area, white just dies. If black goes first in the area, white just lives. For that reason, both groups here are just going to ignore the area until the end of the game. Once the game ends, these two groups remain on the board, and these sections here, these 2 points, they count for nothing. They're dumber. Because you can see they're both surrounded by black and white stones. Now I better point out something that might look like Seki, but it actually isn't. If you remember this shape, so here we know that this is just alive. White has 2 eyes. Black can't really do anything. Here, Atari, you know, same thing. So if you might be wondering, if black throws in a stone here, does this become Seki? Does this become no one's points? Has black basically stolen points from white? And the answer is no. In order to prove that it's Seki, black here needs to prove that this stone cannot be captured. Over in the top right, black can prove that these can't be captured by showing that if white tries to capture it, white just dies. Here you cannot prove the same, because white can just do this whenever. Now white shouldn't really do this. White doesn't need to make any more moves locally. The game should end like this. And this little stone here will just be taken with the other prisoners. But as long as white can prove that they can take it, then it's considered dead and not Seki. And it'll be removed from the board at the end of the game. If we go back now to this, if you guys end the game, let's just say you're white, you guys end the game, and black says no, that stone is not dead. Well, that's where you basically temporarily play out some moves just to prove it, and then you revert the game back. So then it's up to black to prove it can't be captured. So white's going to play here. Black can't do anything. White's going to play here. Black has failed to prove that the stone can't be captured. So you revert the game. And you say, yep, that's dead, and you're going to take it off the board. Now for the fourth status of life and death, Ko. As you may know by now, Ko is the rule that prevents the position from immediately repeating. But how does that rule mix with life and death? Let's have a look at this shape to illustrate the point. If white plays first, white has successfully separated the area into two eyes, it is just alive. But if black plays first, black can play here. And before I go into this, this is probably the most advanced concept of life and death. It's pretty rare to happen. If it seems like a bit much, don't worry about it. You'll eventually pick it up when you're ready. Now, black has played here. What can white do? Maybe white tries to do this, but this turns into a shape that we've seen before, where black has just killed white. White obviously can't do this. Black can just take. Or black can just do this, whatever, it's dead regardless. So white's only move is to do this. Now at first glance, this looks like it separates the group into two eyes. You've got this section and this section. Only difference is that this group, this stone, is in Atari right now. And it's black's turn. So that kind of means that black can play here and take the stone. But as you may have also noticed, this group is now an Atari. This stone, is an Atari. Now if you remember the Ko rule, a position can't immediately repeat. So going back to the last move, this, after they take, you can't just bring it back to this straight away. You've got to change the position up. So I can go somewhere. At this point, if black ignores this move up here, this is now dead. So it's basically, the status of this group is that whoever wins the Ko will decide the status of the group. If white plays a move, let's just pretend this move is like a dangerous move that black needs to answer somewhere on the board. Black answers, and white goes back. Maybe then, obviously, black can't retake and repeat the position. They're going to have to change it up. Black goes here. Now, white can finish the Ko. If they win this Ko, it's just alive. It has two eyes. So that's basically the status of Ko. Both players are going to set up this Ko and then try to get their opponent to play where they play, so that they can win the Ko. Let's pretend black plays a dangerous move somewhere and white feels the need to respond, this can just keep going. And who knows who'll win? Who knows who will win the co? It's just, as long as we know the status is co. That's what matters. So if you've made it this far, you've learnt all the 4 statuses of a group. There are sort of some extremely niche, weird statuses, but you won't need to know that for months. So if you've made it this far, you now know the 4 statuses of a group: alive, dead, Seki, and ko. So there you have it, life and death. It's a skill that you can naturally become stronger as you just play the game. So I encourage you to play around with some games and see what sort of situations you can come up with. So that's it for now. Hopefully you are more adept at killing your opponent's groups. There's a lot to take in. The next video will be a little less dry. I'll be discussing things such as how to properly end the game, how time control works, invasions, how to tell what your rank is, and some tricky moves. Bye for now.